Hello and welcome back to the second part of our masterclass. So last week, let's just give a recap of last week. So last week, what we did was we went through the introduction. So we went through what conversation design is. So talked about how it is used to connect the users with the system. So that means when the user interacts with it, making it feel more human. So yeah, so this is just two examples. So this is the traditional flow where no, regardless of what you put in, it will try to guide you directly to this without really trying to understand and respond accordingly. And yeah, so you this is the same thing. And how nowadays it's more towards dynamic conversations where the bot can understand what you're trying to say and respond accordingly, along with answering other information and even referring you to materials that it has used or other resources. And we also spoke about how previously it was the intent, decision, response, that sort of pattern where we had to define everything and then take it to the next step and so on. But nowadays, how everything works with AI magic, you could call it, with the LLMs, knowledge base, prompt engineering, and an agentic network, depending on the situation. So where now you just queue it and then you now we literally have a flow like this. So where you can go back to this and continue continuously. So yeah, let's just yeah. So this should ideally be let's just remove the arrow. No need of it. Okay. So yeah, nowadays it's just this. So these are two-way arrows. So that's it, and it comes back here. Continues like. So now it's much more easier because the computer does the hard part for you, or the AI does the hard part for you. So you literally just need to define some things. You just need to define this part, and then this happens automatically. But previously, we had to manually define all of these things to make things go. And yeah, so we also spoke about the different jobs that are available in conversation design. We also spoke about why conversation design is important and about how different applications, for example, ClickUp, utilize conversation design to improve it. So where you can ask it via task views to create a task, and then it was able to create a task as well. And we also saw about how the industry is moving towards conversation design. So we saw about how traditional jobs are getting this place, and we also saw about a popular message by the Fiverr's CEO to his team about how AI is taking over every job. So that being said, so that was about the first part of it. So now in today's discussion, we decided to focus more about the principles of how conversation works as a whole and about how personalities and everything can impact. So that being said, so in today's part, let's just start first of all with a very popular theory. So yeah, so this theory is called the Grice's cooperative principle. Yeah, so I'll just copy the definition as well. Right here, principle. So I'll just copy the definition here so that you'll be able to understand it. Maybe we can make the arrows now. Maybe. Yeah, this is good. So Grice's cooperative principle is about how conversations has to be a rational and cooperative activity. So it's actually more like a connection between the people. So in order to have a proper conversation, you should be able to follow a set of rules or a set of maxims. So that is about the maxims which are related prices cooperative principle. So in guidance, this thing, so what he says is that for people to actually have a proper conversation, they have to follow four maxims. So one maxim is it has to be truthful, it has to be informative, it has to be relevant, and it also has to be clear. So those are the four maxims that is important. So yeah, this is the principle and yeah, about the information. So there's some sources as well. So yeah, so that is about this thing. So what it says that in order for people to have a proper conversation, it has to follow these four maxims. So I'll just put the maxims as well so that you'll be able to understand that aspect as well. So these are the maxims that we have to follow. Yeah. So quality. So it has to, one of the things that a conversation has to follow is it has to be full of quality. So that means it has to be truthful. So only what the bot knows, it should be able to answer and understand. So we can actually see something similar in the previous one as well. So the bot is not able to understand this because it's not fed this information. So it says, I'm afraid I don't understand. So it's being truthful. whereas in our one, so since it understood it, it was able to respond. So that is the maximum of quality. So it's able to understand and say only what it knows. So let me just show you another example using. Okay, so yes, let's just try out Convergate how it works. So convergate.ai. Yeah. So let's just go to this and let's try to use strategy out itself and see how things work. So yeah, so let's just ask, for example, here, let's say like this, and we should get good enough response. Yeah. So it grades you based on that. So let's just say we want to, for example, ask, can you book a plane? See, it understood it. See, I'm sorry for any confusion, but I'm an assistant converted. So I'm only able to answer with things related to our platform. It can't really answer about the planes or anything because it's not supposed to do that. So that is about the maximum of quality. So yeah, so this is the quality maximum. So yeah, so quality, it has to be truthful and it has to understand what it can do and what it cannot do. So that is about maximum of quality. So we have, apart from that, we have maximum of quantity. So it means that the conversation has to be not go unnecessarily long. So yes, this message may seem long, but it's not really that long because of the chat window being smaller, it appears long, but it's not really that too long. So let's just say that we want let's just say some simple task. Uh, uh, there are offers. Yeah, see, it says only about the offer. It doesn't really go unnecessarily long, and it says you how to, of course, avail this offer since those are important. So it doesn't go really above and beyond what is necessarily needed to say. So it just gives you the information, and it doesn't give you unnecessary information. It's all relevant and needed information only. So that is about quantity. So the next thing is relation. So let's just say you. I think you may notice also in this. So let me just open that as well. Yeah. So if you look here, see, would you like to know more about our pricing plans or any other feature? See, it's trying to create a sort of a relevancy between the conversation. So it's not trying to do something unnecessary. It's not trying to, for example, ask you to, let's just say, create a bot. It's saying it's making it relevant to the conversation that's happening here. So that is about the relation, maximum relation. Yeah. So that is another aspect. Let's put this here and this here so that you can see it better. I know this. Okay, good. And then the last one is the maximum of manner. So it has to be clear, brief, and orderly. So this is again similar to this, but not exactly that, but in the sense, yeah. So you can notice that in this as well, in this conversation as well. So let's just say we want. I don't think that the clients will be straight. What are let's just ask. Uh, it's okay. So when we ask what are the benefits, it gives it as steps, not steps. It gives you as 3 points, 3 simple points, telling about what are the benefits of community. So you notice how it is actually making things information very clear and concise. So without unnecessarily making paragraphs, it gives you it as 3 points. So that way it's much more easier to understand. So you don't really need to read a big paragraph and highlight where exactly something is mentioned. So you can just look at it and at a glance you'll be able to understand, these are the benefits that I get from this. So that's the sort of the thing that happens with these maxims. So this is the basic understanding about conversation design. So understanding Grice's principles, it will help you able to understand how a conversation should be. So conversation has to have quality, a conversation has to have quantity, a conversation has to have relation. Because you can't expect to talk to someone about cats and expect a reply about dogs, right? It has to be related to what you're talking. You can't really expect something that is not. So that's why people say beating around the bush. Those sort of expressions have come as a result of this. So when people don't really express what is actually needed and start beating around the bush, we don't really. If the conversation is going about one topic, you talk about another topic. That's not a good conversation. That you won't be able to have a good conversation that way. So that is about relation. So manner is about making the answer clear and concise. So if someone asks you about how you got into university, for example, so instead of like so let's just say someone wanted to know how you applied to the university. So instead of saying about your bus journey to the university and everything, because those are unnecessary information. What he asks is about how you got into university, not about how you travel to university or something. So that is sort of unnecessary information. What they most likely want to know is about the application process, not about how you went to the university and applied there. So the journey that you took in between, that is ordering maybe a vehicle to go to the university, and all are unnecessary information. So that's what he focused in the manner sort of a thing. So those are the four maxims that we had to follow when we are designing a conversation. And yeah, so that's one part of conversation design. So apart from that, we have some other aspects that we have to think about. Yeah. So let me just keep it like this. Okay. Cool. So another thing is turn taking and conversation flow. So for example, let's just assume that there is a conversation between two people. So let's just say there is a person A and a person B. So let's just take a person. User. Let's just check the user. So let's say there's this person and then there's another person. There are these two people. So these two people want to have a conversation. So let's just say that they want to talk about something. Let's see whether there's a chat button. Hi, guys. Okay, so let's just say that, for example, he says hi, and then naturally we expect a hi back or a hey or something similar to that. Or we can't flip it up. So then we expect a, so I can't move the, flip the bubble. Yeah, so we expect when a person says hi, we expect a reply, maybe hey. So something like this, right? So we have to, everyone takes a turn. So then you say, I'm fine. Things, maybe. And then this person responds, going great. So you notice it's turn taking, right? So everyone takes a turn in the conversation. So we don't really butt in every time someone says something, right? So it doesn't happen like when the person says, I am fine. Before he says, I am fine, you don't just jump in and say, going great, right? So you wait till he finishes and then you respond. So that's about turn taking. That's a simpler understanding about turn taking. So we similarly want even the chatbots that we create to follow this sort of a turn, right? So the chatbot, the user asks something, chatbot responds. User asks another thing, chatbot responds. Without really interrupting in between, right? And there's another thing that we have to think about. So while we expect a traditional flow to follow like this, so the user asks something, the chatbot responds, user asks another thing, chatbot responds. But sometimes the user may be asking something like, let's just say, tell me about cats. And then the chatbot starts responding, cats, animals, and blah, blah, blah. And then the user maybe interrupts in a normal conversation. The user may interrupt, but I want to know about Persian cats, maybe. So, Persian cats. So, while he's talking, the user interrupts. So, the bot should be able to understand that there is an interruption that is not in the traditional flow and able to adapt to it. So, of course, something, and then you'd start talking about the Persian cats. So, Persian cats. So, the user may interrupt, of course, while asking something. So, it's not a traditional flow. So, I mean, this is very similar, but let's just say that the user wants to talk about dogs. Let's just say Rottweiler, for example. So, Rottweiler is not really a cat, right? So the bot should be able to understand that the user is trying to interrupt and change the conversation and be able to adapt accordingly. So that's the sort of the thing that should also be there. So it should be able to have a flow, a normal flow, so a traditional flow, and able to actually adapt to the interruptions like this. So if there's an interruption like this, the bot should be able to adapt to it and change how it's responding as well. Yeah, so that sort of a thing should also be possible. So yeah, that's about this part. So that's about the conversational flow and the turn taking. So we take turns when we are conversing, but sometimes the user may have some interruption, so the bot should be able to respond accordingly. So another thing, so this is actually due to time constraints. I feel like let's move personas and so on to the next part. So let's just consider these two in this part. So in the next video, let's actually focus on yes, so this is part one. Let's call this as part one because it's going to take a lot longer if I were to mention about personas and everything. Yeah, so part one is done. We have part two remaining. So let's see you guys in the lesson two part two, and where we'll discuss about how personas and everything will be useful when creating human conversations. This is due to time constraints, of course. So yeah, see you in the next one.